Thank you so much, and it's an absolute pleasure, first of all, to attend an in-person event after like 2 years. I was just talking to a lot of people since I have come, and most of us said that yes, it's their first in-person event. So congratulations that we are finally coming out from staring at each other on a TV screen, each of us having a small square centimeter area uh, that we were vying for. So the world is back to normal, which is great. And it's an absolute honor and privilege to, be with such an esteemed panel, such, renowned dignitaries with whom I'm sharing space today. Well, this panel discussion is all about Bank of the Future. And I can't help but remember 15 years back or so when I was working in Government of India, I was working with Reserve Bank of India, and one problem statement that everybody used to talk about, from IT secretary to the head of planning commission and to the governor of RBI, that how we can bring a wave of digital banking in the country. The objective was very simple, that consumers like you and me, for accessing simplest of services, had to go down to a bank branch, stand in a long queue and avail that service. And the times have changed since then in these 15 years. I can bet that hardly there will be anyone in this room who doesn't have your bank's mobile app on your mobile device. We are all in a different world altogether. And what we see as consumer, as an easy access of a banking service, there is so much that goes behind the scene. That is where the digital transformation comes in. There is so much around AI/ML, RPA, cognitive service management. There is so many things which the world has seen, developed, implemented, brought to the market, through which the way banking happens has completely transformed. And when I look at from the perspective of a CIO, what are the key things that will be keeping a CIO awake? There are a few things that come to my mind. One is always available banking service for a consumer. When you and me access any banking service, we go to net banking, we want to make a fund transfer, we want to make a purchase using our, RuPay or other kind of cards, the service needs to be available. Two, the same consumer, whenever they face a trouble, the bank should be able to solve that problem as early as possible, so that the consumer has a delighting factor anytime they are banking with the banks. Now, with COVID, one thing that I have seen coming in on every organization is a cost pressure. We saw economy going down. We saw everybody's having budget cuts, and banks are not different from the world. So they have to maintain high levels of cost efficiency at any given point of time while being able to deliver services better and better. So there are many such areas that are always running in a CIO's mind while thinking of digital transformation and thinking of banking of the future. And I'm very happy that these are some of the areas that we are going to get discussed with the esteemed panel that we have. So with that, let's kickstart the discussion that all of us are waiting for. And I would like to ask my first question to Arif. Arif, you represent the very important organization of our country, NPCI. NPCI is the founder of RuPay, which has taken the whole market globe for a storm. The payment processing across the country happens through NPCI platform. Now, for me to go and do a POS transaction in a shopping center, the transaction may or may not happen if NPCI doesn't help me in a way. So therefore, ensuring availability of his services all the time, upkeep of his services all the time is very important. So what has been your journey, Arif? What challenges did you face as NPCI, and how did you counter those challenges? We'll be very happy to hear.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. Even before I jump into the answer, right? My role at NPCI is to ask questions and think differently, right? And we all like to do that. And just like this COVID, right? He introduced how happy we are that the pandemic is behind us, and we're having a conversation in physical, and we are meeting each other, greeting each other. And I think that's been the approach towards tech and resilience in most of the country, most of the bankers, right? It's event-based. There is something goes down, there is a problem, and then you take it to the project and do that. And that's where the challenge starts, right? You can't take availability and resilience, right, as a project. It has to be a philosophy that runs deep, right? So let me answer a question. How many of you guys over here are bankers? Not many bankers? Okay, how many of you guys in the technology world? Excellent, okay. So how often do you have a CEO review on technology downtimes, right? Besides the CEO asking you questions, hey, why was the downtime and firing you? How often is he getting into like, how do we solve it on a week-on-week basis? What is our plan for the next 2 years? How many of you have those kind of conversations? I'm assuming a lot of you are senior management or higher middle management, right? Right, very barely few hands, right? So what it means is that people take resiliency as a given. They take scalability as a given. They take it as a project, right? Some event happened, you react and respond. I think that needs to change. If you really want to make sure, look, he spoke about digital transformation, right? Customers adopting digital transactions. Why do customers adopt and why will customers not adopt digital transactions? It's not because of technology. It's about the fact that there's something called trust. Like I find it very difficult to convince my spouse to always use UPI or a RuPay, right? She tells me that whenever I go shopping, I carry cash. And I've been at payments for the last 20 years, right? I find it very difficult to convince her. She's saying, I don't know if it will work or no. I don't want to be embarrassed at the counter. It took me like 15 years of effort and now to get her to convince her, right? And thankfully she uses a Bhim app and it works most of the time, I mean all the time. And the moment if it doesn't work, the trust is gone. And this customer is not going to do a digital transaction again. You're going to lose the customer. Either he'll go back to physical or he'll shift to a competitor of yours. We don't want that. So my ask, my request, my suggestion to all you guys is, when you talk about resiliency, you talk about scalability, don't look at it from outside in, look at it from inside out, right? Please do not look at it as a project. Do not tell your tech guys you have 1 year and you have to solve this. It's a continuous thing. It has to have more importance than any other project or a value-added service or feature that you launch. That's the core of it. So in my view, if you want to really solve this, it's not a question about technology, it's about the philosophy that runs within the organization. Okay. So just coming back to NPCI, right? So today in NPCI, what keeps me awake? So we process around 1.2 billion APIs, what we orchestrate every day, right? That translates to somewhere around 7 to 8 billion financial transactions every month. There are a few things that we adopted, right? And we wanted to, at the core of it, have a very seeding philosophy, and we call it 3D. What it means is zero danger, zero downtime, zero disruption, right? Sorry, zero defect. And everything that we do, every decision, every strategy that we do, whether it's on the business side, on the tech side, is driven by that, right? What we have started doing, so for example, we went back and we looked at, traditionally all your organization would have something called a PR and DR, right? So there is a primary side, there is a DR side, it's the outcome of BCP, right? And then what happens is, you feel it's like an insurance. If something happens to A site A, you can shift to site B. And earlier the site A to site B was like a 45 minutes window. You did some efficiency and you got it to 5 minutes or 6 minutes. Okay? And then what you used to do, you used to run some very heavy programs in what you call lean hours, right? And you did something like EOD, BOD happens a lot in banks. I'm not sure how often it is done in other BFSI segments, right? What does it mean? What does it translate? The assumption over there is that point in time, the customers are not using our services or they're not likely to use. But it has changed. Today, youngsters, not only youngsters, anyone is doing transactions 24/7. I recollect my time in a bank way back in 2002, 2003. Whenever we needed a downtime, we used to take it between 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. But the reality today is that between 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., there is someone using your cards, or someone is using UPI, or someone is trying to do something. Right? So this entire concept of EOD, BOD, and not being available for a particular period of time has to really go. What it means, you may have BCP, you should have PRDR, but what it means, it has to all be active. So if I have to give you a technology queue, everyone needs to look at active. That means both your sites are performing and up at the same time. And if you look at it from an ROI point of view, you spoke a bit about the money is behind it and all. Imagine you have one site which is live and up, and you have a second site that is waiting for something to happen and it kicks in. It's basically dead investment, right? So I think these are the key things, right? The other thing that really I get a bit worried about is how people start looking at AI. Clearly, AI is a great tool and solution that we have, which can help you do so many things, right? But again, and the speaker before me spoke about customer service and so many other, and they are all important things. But in my view, the reality, it has to be inside out. I mean, where is the AI being used within your technology community? In running your data center, in running your technology, keeping your servers uptime, are you really using AI? I mean, it's pointless thinking about customer service when you yourself are using AI, when you yourself are not doing that internally, right? And that's not going to give you strength. So I would really go back to people and say, look, AI is fantastic, right? I mean, you really need to understand it, you have to get in depth and use it internally. And when you start looking at it that way, it is not just the peripheral layer, right? You know, we used to do that earlier, right? You want to give some magic, want to give some great customer experience, you create a layer on top, it does some orchestration, it's done. But it doesn't help you beyond a point. It's not sustainable. So the questions you'll have to ask, where are all my logs? Where are all my event logs? Are they in a data lake? Are they in SIEM? Wherever they are, can I crunch them? Can I figure out trends from them? Can they proactively give me prognosis? And you know, BMC tool does a bit of that, right? I mean, our company does that. Can I get infra inputs, you know, maybe using IoT? Can I get application inputs on that? And then can I correlate? If you go back to your tech guys and you ask them how many tickets are raised or how many events are raised in a day, they will be running into thousands. You can't certainly attend to 1,000 tickets. So the question is to come back that how do you rank them? And I'm assuming quite a few of you are business guys because you didn't put your hand up on technology. What's your SLA with your tech guys? You know, I remember in my earlier career, right, someone very senior used to come and say that I want it up 100% of the time. I mean, it sounds good, but the reality, it's not going to happen, right? And then I questioned, okay, dude, fine, you want 100% uptime services. These are 6 sets of services that I cater to. Which of them is the order of priority? That conversation did not happen. So I think what we need to do is obviously we need to upgrade our technology. We need to go back, right? So a lot of banks use something called core banking. You would have heard about it, right? You have to go back and think that probably it's a 20-year-old design. And please understand, if your chassis is not updated, you can put any fancy, right? I mean, let's understand, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari can perform not because of its outer body, it's the chassis, right? And your chassis in most of these cases is your core banking. So you need to relook at that. You need to relook at, is it meant to service 24/7? Do I need to make my chassis more lighter? What I mean by that, I think there's a concept that is running in some people's mind is how do I make my core banking more shallow? Because everything sits in that one goddamn big box. It's very critical, I agree. But for everything you have to go over there, and if there is something wrong with that, I cannot service my customer. So what do I do? Can I introduce something as positive balance files? Can I introduce something as SAF? I think that's something that people need to look at. So coming back, in NPCI, for us, technology is not only about what we do, because we work with the ecosystem. We have more than 1,500 banks connected to us. And we run something called 4-party model in the form of UPI and RuPay. And we switch transactions. So even if one bank is down or not responding to us in the millisecond, it has an impact. So our effort has been not to only upgrade ourselves, is to see how we can do some heavy lifting on behalf of the bank with things like throttling and those kind of things, right? So let me tell you, you would have heard about this LIC IPO. You guys have heard about it, the LIC IPO recently? I'm sure a lot of you kind of want to invest in that. This is one time where I've seen the entire community came together, like all the banks, there were 3 anchor banks, and the larger issuer side banks came together. And this planning has been going on for the last almost 1 year. Okay? And this is the first time I have seen that the results have been terrific in terms of technology performance, right? At the end of the day, you have happy investors. It's just got over, right? So again, at NPCI, effort is to work with the community, work with the industry, see how we can do something like a throttling, how we can lift weight out of your core banking. Some of the new solutions that we've launched, right? They don't necessarily mandate that you have to go for the transaction to core banking and dip into the value pool over there. There's something called UPI Lite, which is just recently under a POC, right? And hopefully it will be in the market in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So that's it from my side, but this is a conversation that can go on. I think the tendency is to think tech. I think the tendency should be to think strategy. The tendency should be, and look, when you do these base things, ROI should come later, right? Because this is a matter of survival. And if you don't have this, your systems are not up, your customers are going to somebody else. Then you don't exist, the customers don't exist for you, then you can keep doing whatever you want on the ROI, but it's not going to help. Right? Thanks.
Thank you, Arif. I think there was some great insights. At BMC, we talk about running and reinventing, and I could not, think beyond resonating with what you said, that while you're running, if you're not reinventing, the chassis example that you gave is very, very important. And all of us have remembered those days too, when there is a big billion day sale or where there is a big IPO opening up, and either the exchange is crashing or the system is working and there's a loss of business, where I think the transformation in the AI has started playing a very critical role.
I'll just add one more thing, right? We have a tendency to wake up late, right? The moment you, as an organization, launched a mobile banking app, which is a decade ago, or you launched something called net banking, or you launched something called SMS banking, or you launched a card, I think that is the time you should have realized that your resilience and availability is going to be the key. If you come now in 2021 and 22, start thinking about it, you're out, right? So I think, yeah, it's a wake-up call, but...
Yes, absolutely. On a similar note, I'll move to now my friend Deepak, my namesake from HDFC. Deepak, you are representing the largest private sector bank in the country. The pressures on you are no less than anybody else. We talk about AI, we talk about digital transformation, but one key use case that AI helps us solve is that when there are tons and tons of problems to solve, for us as service providers, it is important to know which one to solve first, which means finding a needle in the haystack, which is bringing down the event noise down by leveraging AI and bringing in proactive service management for our customers. Now, customers could be external customers could be our own employees that we are serving, right? So, what has been your experience of leveraging AI towards proactive problem management and bringing down the noise and looking at the problems that need to be solved first?
I'll have to give a bit of a background about me, so that will act as context. So I'm actually part of the marketing organization. Okay, I'm a marketing technologist. My job is to ensure customer experience is improved using technology, right? I work very closely with a CDO or a CIO, but I report into the CMO. The world is slowly changing, right? So what I bring in is the fact that digitization and technology is pretty much hands and legs for an organization today. Hands and legs in the sense that they serve you, right? When you want something in terms of doing a transaction, you want to buy an additional product, the hands and legs bring the product to you, right? But it's not as simple as that. Digitization itself does not solve all of the problems. It's not a magic wand, right? So my job is to look at the customer experience. So I'm the eyes and ears, right? A lot of the people build digital applications and a lot of service providers here provide them. But ask yourself, how many times in your product development strategy you have put analytics as a key item on your day one launch? A lot of people don't do it. You don't know where the customer is dropping off, what is the error, how to track it, what is the revenue loss, right? Now, to your question, right? You said, how do you work with your technology partners to identify which problems to solve first, right? Now, this is a question that can be answered in several different ways. They can be, you can say, okay, let's get into a agile mode, do a daily stand-up, do more collaboration, so on and so forth. That's all fine, okay? At the end of the day, most organizations are businesses. So they basically understand how is this hitting my bottom line or top line. So that's how I explain it to my counterparts in technology. Essentially, every transaction you're doing, we are measuring how many people are dropping off, for what reason, and how to go back to them. At the same time, every time, let's say, for example, you're trying to open an account, right? You come, you put in your Aadhaar, you then say, okay, look, it's looking like it has 6 more steps. I'm going to maybe come back later and do it, right? We go and engage them back and bring them back and complete the journey, right? This brings in revenue for the bank. Let's look at another scenario. Typically, the conversion rates are below 5% in this scenario. So you have a digital platform, but 95% of the time it does not work, right? So it is up to the marketeer to ping the customer back on WhatsApp nicely, the nice smiley as a creative, and bring you back. Say, please come back, right? Now, let's look at problems. The way we track our analytics, it tells me exactly which API failed, what is the error code on a marketing dashboard. I also service my product guys, a personal loan owner, right? Or a credit card business owner knows how many cards have been sold today as of 30 minutes back. How many 100 crores have been disbursed as of 30 minutes back. It's a mobile app that I serviced to my counterparts there. They also know which error code has happened. What is the error code? XC_11065. Because of that error code, how many transactions failed? At the existing conversion rate, what would have been the revenue loss? They can simply multiply. They are business guys. They can multiply. Very simple. They will say, this error code cost me 5,000 cards in this month, but I would have issued. This error code cost me 300 crores this month in disbursement. It's a service I provide to these guys, right? Hence, there are some people who are coming in saying, I will take charge of the customer experience, but it is a collaborative effort of giving the information out to business guys and empowering, most importantly, the technology guys, right? So they know I need to prioritize what is causing me 100 crores loss of disbursement in a month. And they can ignore something that is causing 2 crores of loss in a month, right? It is a beautiful thing to watch. Because technology guys are overburdened, and the technology now is the engine of banking and most of the industries, right? They're overburdened with so many priorities which are on fire, but there's no justification behind it, right? So this way, there is no AML involved here yet, unfortunately, but at least information is getting disseminated. At least data is democratized within the organization. And it's empowering people like downstream from me, who I appreciate. If they don't do their work, I cannot bring in business, right? So there is things like, the closest I will get to AML, because you said AML, so I have to try and articulate somehow. At least you have anomaly detection, right? So I can detect an anomaly on a digital journey that says, okay, today your iOS version X devices are not finishing the journey by 3 standard deviations. At least that comes. Then I'll say, okay, boss, maybe the library that powers the keypad in iOS has something wrong. Maybe we've done some movement in the last night which is broken. This data is there. Auto fixing it or auto treating that problem is not there yet. But this information is there, so that revenue loss you will probably get from an iOS device, and typically these are high value customers because the device itself is expensive. So we are able to go back and say, okay, chalo, let's look at what is powering the keypad experience on an iPhone, and can we fix it? And put it on high priority. And the IT guy says, okay, now I will do this today. I will do this today because it is causing us this much revenue impact, right? To sum it up, essentially, it's a collaborative effort. Everyone needs to get involved. People have built digitization, which are hands and legs, but there seems to be sometimes, and it's honest thinking that I have about the industry, the eyes and ears typically are missing. If you put the eyes and ears there in the middle, it helps everyone. It helps me generate revenue. It helps my partners in the technology side prioritize and fix what is causing the biggest problem, and they're not overburdened. Right, Deepak? So this is to me the power of data understanding and prioritizing.
So actually, Deepak, I thought I'll also jump in and ask some questions, right? So normally at NPCI, bankers are our customers, right? So you don't mess with customers, you don't get a chance to ask them. But today I have a chance, thanks to this organizers. So I'll tell you, right, and I understand what it means to work in an organization like AG. I hope I understand. It's a big organization, done very well, etc., and all that. But in your conversation, I could see some KPIs coming out, like revenue, a return of investment, which is great, right? And upsell and cross-sell and all. And this is my experience with banks, right? And I'll share with you guys. Just like a lot of you here, I have kids. So I went and wife forced me, said, boss, bachche log ke liye saving karna hai. So I said, okay, kids account. I have salaried people, that's what we do. So you put some money, and what do? You don't take money out of it, right? You yet, as parents in India, you yet control the account, right? Typically when the kids are 10, 12, 14, you control it. The card is also in the locker. Thankfully, the bank has given a so-called kids card and all. So what do? You only deposit. What happens is after 6 months, 9 months or 12 months, some frequency, it becomes something called inactive. And of course, the bank reaches out and sends you a mail to your personal ID, right? And you know what happens on your mailbox, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you go through. I don't go through my personal mailbox every day. And there's no way to filter it out, okay? So that account goes inactive. While all the time I use a whole lot of mobile banking, I use a net banking, it never prompts over there. Dude, this account is going inactive, do something about it. It lets my account go. Why? The way but yeah, they keep telling me upgrade to a new card, upgrade to this thing. There is, take a car loan, buy a BMW. They don't know my salary looks like. They are telling me to buy a BMW, okay? So those kind of things. But my kid's account then goes into an inactive status. So what do I do? So there's no way on the so-called online channels you can activate it. Have you tried it? You go try it. And this is not a particular bank. I'm not trying to take a dig at you. It's in general, I went on that thing to try out it. You can't activate it, okay? You can't go to the ATM and activate it. You can't do it on mobile banking. IVR, it's not happening for me at least, okay? So what do? You have to go in a branch, okay? Branch जाओगे तो आप गाड़ी में जाओगे तो parking नहीं मिलेगी. So all those issues, let it be. That's not the bank's problem. That is the customer's problem, right? You decided to bank. Okay. You go there, you have to fill 2-3 forms and you have to do a transaction on the counter, deposit or withdraw. You have to, actually they look for a debit transaction, right? Obviously that's a process, it's got to do with governance, compliance, and it's fair. I'm not saying they're there to protect us. But my simple question is, when we talk so much about data, a simple prompt when I'm on one of your channel, one of your asset, this is going to be an inactive status. Why can't you just make it active? Why don't you do this? Prompt. It never happens. It never happens. I'll tell you one new fantastic thing I discovered. You go to any bank, right? They have a smart chatbot. Everyone talks about chatbots. You love chatbots, right? The interface. It pops up on the right-hand side or on the right-hand side top corner or top right or down corner, whichever. Someone has decided in one corner of the world, this is where I always look. And it's right. There's science behind it, I agree. Okay, it's a UX science behind it. It pops up and I don't want to chat. I'm doing something else. But that pop-up stays there. It doesn't go. I'm telling him go. No, it is not going. It forces me to click and then it goes. That's what I'm saying, auto-sensing. Why can't you just, you're there, you're standing in the queue, I don't want to talk to you, go my friend, why are you in my face? So my request is, yes, it's great to upsell, it's great to revenue, it's great to do all that thing, and I'm sure you're doing, right? And that's the reason I bank with you guys. But ये छोटा मोटा चीज जो है ना, from a customer point of view, is really important. And child account na, my wife is personally invested into it. I screw up my account, she doesn't care. Child account na, oh God, then खाना आना नहीं मिलेगा घर पे दाल रोटी के लिए आपके घर पे आना पड़ेगा ब्रांच में जाना पड़ेगा ठीक है थैंक यू
Arif, I can just tell you one thing, that there is no better place than to give feedback to a bank than on this stage.
and thank you for the feedback. I think you are only adding fuel to what my passion is, which is customer experience, right? A lot of legacy technologies, banks are now trying to reform themselves, right? We are one of them, of course. So the reform is that you put the power in the hands of people outside of technology who thinks technology first. That's what happens, chatbot, right? I want a chatbot. Why do you want it? I saw it in the conference. Okay, great. What is the customer imperative that you're trying to solve? What is the need that you're trying to solve? Is it good designed to satisfy the need properly? This is the thing that the industry needs to think about, right? And this is a tech conference at the end of the day, right? So we sometimes lead with tech first, right? This is the honest assessment that I have. But we should lead with the customer, right? Customer like him, right? If there is enough investment in data to figure out that he's struggling, right? Which is a customer experience paradigm at the end of the day. It's not a tech-led thinking. Right? You say a customer is struggling, how can you help him? And how can I say I don't need a technology which is causing harm rather than good, right? So this is a journey that I think most banks are taking today. They have realized they're empowering people like me, right? And saying, boss, okay, you can figure out what technology you want to use because you know that the customer has a pain point, right? And the more I get empowered, the more I can make him happier, right? And I hope most banks have people like me who are about to go out there, speak, learn. I'm here because I can actually come and make a decision here. That's the reason, right? Most times the decision is made by some technology guys at somewhere he's never met a customer before in their life, right? So it's slowly changing. Hopefully the more this happens, the more problems in the banking industry will ease out and the customer imperative will win out. That's my hope.
Absolutely. And thank you, Deepak. I can just tell you that this is not the first time I'm meeting you. And I had the privilege of Deepak showing me live how he is using AI on the analytics side to take decision making, which he explained earlier during his answer. So giving credit back to AI, there are many, many problems that can be solved. And there is so much more that can be done in terms of our wish list, which are possible, which is happening through various initiatives. So I think we'll see a lot more as we progress. I'll now move to my friend sitting next to me, Avinash. Avinash, you are representing a new age company, Rapido. Started 5 years back, had an amazing journey servicing your customers across different verticals in their cloud migration journey.
That's right. Yeah.
So what has been your experience, Avinash? Especially today, I saw when I came to this event that there are so many new companies around, and India has gone through a huge startup culture, right? So we have seen emergence of a new era altogether in India. There was a time when we wanted to work only for, American or European MNCs. And today, there's a huge amount of job which has been created, huge amount of technology innovation which has been brought from our country. So what has been your experience, Avinash, particularly in a BFSI space, when you interacted with banks and Reserve Bank of India, how appreciative have they been towards adopting technologies being brought in by companies such as Rapido?
धन्यवाद दीपक इस प्रश्न के लिए. मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि राजभाषा में बोलूं, जस्ट टू कट द क्लटर. आरबीआई और हर बैंक में हम देखते हैं कि हिंदी में बोलने के प्रयत्न करें. तो इस प्रश्न के 3 पहलू है. आई विल जस्ट मे बी साइट माई एक्सपीरियंसेस. रैपिडो इज ऑफ कोर्स अ क्लाउड कंसल्टिंग कंपनी, बट माई एक्सपीरियंसेस ऑल्सो go back to working in a startup. So if you go to IIT Madras, there is a whole campus of startups, all mentored or shepherded by IIT Madras. So we were one of them in voice biometrics. So the challenges when we want to work with banks as a, let's say, somebody who has prepared an intellectual property or IP in India, it comes in 3 shapes. One is, has RBI approved it? Because bankers usually has the last adoption cycle. I mean, what is usually picked up at a very fast pace by a consumer company or a manufacturing, banking is heavily regulated. So they're the last ones in the adoption cycle. So has RBI approved it? Second, do you have any bank references in India? So if I say I am a startup, so I'm starting new, I have this product, I can showcase this in a sandbox or a POC. That may not be good enough, they want references. And third, maybe a entry barrier is that can you bid through RFP? An RFP which says you should have 500 crore turnover as a startup. So we then start fabricating or collaborating with other system integrators. But it's a mixed journey, I would say, Deepak, very interesting. HDFC Bank also had given us an ample opportunity that time to demonstrate voice biometrics. But the experience has been, I think, more positive for some reason with public sector banks in terms of a defined approach. Like SBI has in Vashi, New Bombay, something called as GITC, Global Information Technology Center. They have mandated that some projects can be given to the startup. So very interesting case study. So we found a use case where the foreign exchange or forex traders within SBI, they pick up the phone and answer, and there are thousands of calls in a very small time span. It all operates on trust. You don't know and you don't ask who's calling. The other side may just ask you what is the rate, the Libor rate or the forex rate, whatever rate. So the call ends in about 6 seconds, 4 to 6 seconds. It is just give a price, take a price. But there is no authentication there. So we said we can authenticate for the bankers that basis of voice, just the voice, not the language, the content, we can ascertain who's calling and help you sail through this. But of course the challenge there was that the call itself is 6 seconds, so we have to do the authentication in less than 2 or 3 seconds, which was a tough task for us 3 years ago. But today I believe the technology is available. So SBI has a very good methodology there to work with startups, especially in the banking segment. I think YONO was a collaborative effort, I think, with startups. YONO, I think you would have heard about it. You only need one. That is the full form of YONO banking app. Second experience, very positive, has been with RBI's training institution. I work still with IDRBT, Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology, which is a 26-year-old RBI institution in Hyderabad. They have a fintech forum, they have a CISO forum. They're very welcoming towards startups, especially IP made in India, product companies and service companies as well. So if any startup in India today wants to really make an impact within the banking segment, I think a lot of payment firms do work with NPCI, but IDRBT across all like AR, VR, chatbots, voice bots, voice authentication, facial biometrics, behavioral biometrics. Behavioral biometrics is, can I predict, is it you who's using this basis of your keystrokes or how you hold the mouse, what is the pressure you're impacting on the mouse on your laptop, things like that. So IDRBT has done a great job. They have a 5G test lab there in Hyderabad, where many Indian startups have found use cases, and also a sponsor bank, like Telangana Gramin Bank or SBI or Bank of Baroda would bring in their money, their business challenge, work with this Indian startup, and the entire exercise is monitored and helped through by IDRBT. So I think this is a good mixed experience. So startups may find a bit of challenge in product and services, but I think the scope is vast. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avinash. I'll again go back to Arif. Arif, NPCI is a not-for-profit organization, right? And even the ones which are, many of us which are commercial, which have to work for profits, for our sustainability and growth, there is a huge cost pressure which has come up, which was always there, but it has intensified over the last couple of years, the COVID and all that we saw. Eventually, when the budgets are cut, the IT also bears the burn, that bring down the cost of IT operations, find more ways to deliver the same or the better service with lesser resources, with better utilization of technology, so on and so forth. Even in BMC, at one point of time, we used to have 36 data centers, and we brought it down to 4 by bringing in effective, cost optimization measures and capacity management technologies. What has been your experience, Arif? Has the cost pressure been seen by you? And from an IT perspective, what interventions have you been able to take to contain the cost and deliver more using the resources at your hand?
Sure. So I think the cost pressure is faced through the industry, right? With or without economic situation, obviously, because organizations inherently need to function with cost aspects, right? As to how does your balance sheet look. Just to clarify to everybody, we are a not-for-profit organization. That means our original people, stakeholders, banks who invested in us, we don't give them a dividend back. But that doesn't mean we don't like to make money. We like to make reasonable money so we can keep investing back in the infra for the country, what we want to do. So having said that, our cost pressures come from a slightly different angle, right? And thankfully, to add to all this, my boss, who's the MD CEO of NPCI, is a techie, right? So my life is a reasonably simplified comparatively, right? Okay, so that's one. The second thing is, see, you need to go back and look at digital transformation and adoption in the country, right? See, whether we like it or no, you can't expect Indian customers, including myself or my family, to pay for anything. We are not used to it. We want freebies, and that's not going to change. Okay. The moment there is a cost to it, there is a friction, and people will move away. I'm sure that's been the experience in the bank, and that's a big challenge. Now, there are two ways to look at it. Right? So our effort has been that, look, what can we do if we really want to make India digital is to reduce the unit cost. Because at the end of the day, somewhere in the ecosystem, a stakeholder is putting costs. And thankfully, a lot of people don't understand this number. And I've been with some global companies, right, multinational networks, so on and so forth. The unit price of a transaction in India for a payment, okay, whether it's UPI or RuPay or an ATM, is the lowest. There is no such. So the cost that goes, and someone has to bear the cost. We'll come to who bears the cost maybe in a different conversation. So one, I think that's a fantastic job this ecosystem has done. Okay. So our effort is to make sure that we maximize that, right? More the transactions, reduce the cost, right? Another very important thing for us, and it is not only driven by cost, it is driven by multiple factors, because obviously sovereignty of the country. So we believe in creating IPs. As a country, as an organization, we have to create IP for our country, right? And IP is the way to win these battles going ahead. And some of these other countries are leading in the IP battle. So we believe we need to add IP. So while doing that, and when you look at the IP context and reducing costs, one of the things we started doing is We do a lot of stuff in-house. It's not that we don't partner. We partner with a lot of tech companies. But we typically work on open source, right? So today, when you talk about India and what we are processing on UPI, it's 100% open source, right? So there is no licensing fee we are paying to somebody. And sometimes these, whether it's database and so on and so forth, right? And when you go back and you look at your cost sheet, if the CFO and the CIO sit together, a lot of this cost is license cost. So we've kind of I'm not saying 100%, but across our footprint, we've eliminated to a good 85-90%. And as we speak, there is work going to, make sure that by the next year we're 100% free of that. So that's one thing that has really helped us, manage our costs and give it back to the ecosystem. The other is, what are the new value adds that you can build on your existing rails, right? Because that's going to attract more people and, the economics work for you that way, right? For example, and I keep going back to UPI because it's pretty popular, Beam UPI, right? So for example, earlier it was P2P, then P2M picked up. So you could not only transfer money to your friends, but now you can pay the merchants, you can pay on QR code. So that QR code in itself reduces the cost. Earlier you were putting POS machine, which is, $150, and now you have a QR code which costs you 20 paisa to print out and put it over there, and you can do the function, right? So we did it on e-commerce side, we did it on the physical side and all. And obviously this is along with the industry, not us alone. Now the other things that we are trying to do is build value add cases, right? For example, recurring payments, standing instructions, right? Subscriptions, right? Whether it's a Hotstar, Disney TV, so many OTT channels. What it does is you do one core transaction and like a house rent, right? I mean, if you are on rental, you're going to pay for the next 12 months. So how do you treat that transaction? How do you make friction less over there and add more business value added cases? What it means is there is more adoption on the same rail. And if there is more adoption on the same rails, the economics will work for you. So that's largely been our effort. This combined by always investing in building in-house talents, right? There is no, there is no shortcut to that. You will have to go to that. You mentioned about cloud, right? So interestingly, I was with some very, very senior delegates and one or two different interactions. And obviously, I'm all for cloud, right? We do a lot of open cloud within NPCI private cloud. I asked the question to 2-3 different people in a different way. The CFO was looking at cloud because he believes ROI, cost kam ho jayega. Okay. I asked the tech guys, my community, and their answer is, yaar, bahut headache hai. Nahi apne paas, we don't have the talent pool. It's better to give it to the cloud. Someone will take care of the headache. Okay. I asked the business guy. Business guy saying, I'm frustrated with my tech guys. They never deliver in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's better if I do something on the cloud and I'll get a vendor. It will be faster turnaround time. And all these 3 reasons are valid. I don't say no. But as an organization, what is that core one reason that you're trying to go to the cloud? Doesn't seem to be clear. So then your unit economics is not going to work out. You will end up with getting ROI by saving on some servers, but you will not deliver what the customer wants, right? So I think when we talk about pricing, we need to look at it from a 360 point of view, right? And India is a growing country, right? I mean, look at it. Look at our digital penetration. We are blessed with the population, but I think we have a long way to go. So I would encourage everyone to have a long view, right? You can't build a country with 2 years, 3 years, 4 years plans. You have to bare minimum look at 10, 15 years. It's like how US invested into the interstate highways, right? Who asked in 1920s to build a 5-lane highway? They built, and today they benefited from it, right? So I think we also cannot be so cost conscious that we don't build for the future. We have to build for our kids. My kids whose account they had disconnected, they are the ones who are going to use these digital channels. So we will have to continue to invest, but yeah, we will rationalize it. Right?
Thank you, Arif. And some very good example that I could pick from, what you described is that bringing down cost is on one side about technology, the other side is about intelligence. The barcode example that you gave, I mean, replacing a POC terminal altogether with a printout and letting anybody and everybody accept a payment using UPI and other channels is a great innovation that has come with basic intelligence that we could put to the fore. So thank you, Arif. I'll move on to Deepak. Deepak, you earlier talked about analytics and how you have been leveraging analytics to, take decisions. I would want to ask you a different flavor of the same, that how are you also servicing your customers using analytics? It could be external customers, it could be your internal teams who have to take decisions based on the analytics that you are processing. So if you can throw some light onto that, service management from the perspective of analytics that you consume.
So I own the entire digital data collection for HDFC Bank, and there's humongous amount of data, right? It will boggle your mind, the number of attributes, number one, and the stream, which is the volume of it per minute, per second, so on and so forth. It is excruciatingly difficult to make sense of it, right? But we're making an attempt. So to give you an example, right? There was never a way to figure out that a customer is struggling to take a transaction ahead, right? You could never invest in a heat map tool which told you where is the customer getting stuck. Because there were data privacy concerns, security concerns, which the regulator makes it very, very difficult to sense where the customer is struggling, right? Over the top of an application. But that's okay. If you are struggling, that means you are abandoning, right? You're going away from HDFC Bank. At least start there. So that's what we've started doing, right? If a and if they are going away, simple things like you send a SMS saying, can you please rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay, this is a classic way of collecting feedback. Of course, feedback is not always good, but that's a good thing. So you know where to work on, right? What I like to use analytics for is to empower the hundreds and hundreds of priorities to be whittled down to at least 10, right? The biggest problem internally in organizations are people pass the buck. This is not my problem, this is your problem. This is your problem, this is your problem. So what typically ends up happening is, at the end of the day, the guy, the engine of organizations today, the tech guys, tend to have a laundry list rather than a priority list, right? We spoke about this, right? So what I specifically love doing is taking the humongous amount of data, making sense of it. Number one, go back to the customer and apologize. Okay, so something went wrong. Okay. Number two, in parallel, give it to the IT guy, saying, okay, boss, can you fix this? What is the reason? This is high priority? Is because the volume has gone up by 3x as opposed to last month. Or month to date, this value was never this high. But this month to date, these are all business ways of looking at it, because I'm a business guy at the end of the day, right? But I'm able to put a month to date sort of a value and give it to the IT guy, say, "Is mahine mein kuch to gadbad hai." And the number of errors are ahead than last month, right? So there is this interesting thing when different types of people get together and collaborate, right? My digital sales way of looking at data is actually giving my IT folks a way of looking at data in a reverse way. Okay, we are ahead on errors rather than ahead on sales. When typically you're ahead on errors on a month-to-date basis, you're behind on sales on a month-to-date basis. So our jobs and our roles are tied at the hip, right? What this brings on, right, Deepak, so what this actually helps in the organization, which I'm very proud of, is collaboration across teams. Right? A lot of the times, the data is hidden in your logs, your Apache server log somewhere. Right? You used a lot of log analysis tools in the market, but the access is only with the IT folks. What is the point? Right? Who's going to act upon it? Because the IT folks will not be empowered. They don't know what to do with it. Right? So the log analysis tool actually is managed by me, and I have signed the bill. Right? Because I know that I can make sense of it. Of course, the IT folks are the users, but I have found a business justification for it. Because I am simply calculating, boss, customer comes, out of those customers who have come in, how many of them have got the service end-to-end, or have given us more business end-to-end, right? This ratio keeps fluctuating. If more customers comes in, the failures obviously go up. See, seasonality is there. If demand is high during Diwali for certain products, the failures also go up, right? So this ability to look at data, underwrite, sorry, I'm using a banking term, or bankroll software for our technology folks. Because I have a business KPI, and I can ask them to look at it a different way. And empower them also with the funds that they need to go ahead and do it. right, is what I find very, very rewarding, right? So while I lead the analytics part, it is very easy for a marketer to say, I will use analytics only to check what my ROI is on paid media. It's very easy to do that, and a lot of people do that as well. But I have realized there's so much data. Thankfully, we are in an age where everything is digital, and I'm anyway sitting there. I can harness this data. I have to have the foresight to say I can pass it along to other people who probably never, ever even wanted to pay for this tool. But since it's there in the organization, how can I democratize access to data and tools? Just because I've signed the bill does not mean it's only for me, and I will use it in a very limited way, right? So that's one thing. I mean, it's not about technology, it's more about collaboration that I feel is helping us along.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Conscious of time, I'll quickly ask my last question to the panel, and that goes to you, Avinash. You represent industry much like me. What are the key areas you think banking ecosystem should immediately act upon that will eventually help the industry, help the banks to become the bank of the future, which all of us want to reach? Yeah.
Sure. So I think, Rapider, we work with Amazon Web Services and Azure. Cloud is, the first answer is that we want banks to use more scalability, and what we say on cloud is don't guess the capacity. If you want to do a POC physically using let's say a virtual server farm or whatever, it takes months. But here you can go active in few days. So second is we have been focusing more on housing loan segment, housing finance companies and home loan mortgage divisions of banks that we have seen as a very responsive segment in banking sector for cloud computing. So in that, I would say there are 2-3 areas where, of course, one is to bring all these applications on cloud, containerize it, modernize the applications, modernize the databases. But there are 2-3 very interesting case studies. So one is, can we reduce the non-performing assets in home loans or in any loans which is sanctioned? So there is this concept, maker, checker and approver, right? I mean, how do you tie all this? It is seen in many banks that I log in using my username password, I am the maker, I am the approver. Okay, I mean, I don't know which banks, I'll not specifically say this, but can we use, so we have suggested a technology where biometrics can be a way to ascertain that a person who proposed the loan is not the one who approved it, not the one who finally released the loan. So that is one way to contain non-performing assets. Second use case, which is in an active POC now with a bank headquartered in Bombay, is that there is again a field requirement that a banker or an agent of the bank has to visit the place of, or the asset. If I am giving a home loan, I have to visit that home or that flat or apartment. But 30-40% of the time it is let go. I mean, you are not sure whether the banker or the bank appointed agent has physically ascertained whether this is the apartment being given or a factory asset being given the loan against, a collateral. So the way to do it is that you can do a geo-tagging on a mobile app, again through the cloud, but you can use tools like voice biometrics or facial biometrics along with geo-tagging to ensure that the bank person was at a specific place, specific time of the day, and he has filed this photo or whatever he has sent it, thereby guaranteeing that the bank will not have beyond 1 or 2% of non-performing assets. So these are in active POCs which we are running from Rapider. I think these are the areas. And one last area could be that I had asked Deepak how soon can we open a minor banking account. It takes days. So inclusion of children in the savings habit, and also one gray area is the pension reforms. All banks and everybody pays different types of social security pensions and state pensions. Do you know that every state government pays anywhere from 5 to 50 crores every month in incorrect pension payments? People who have passed away, people who are not available, people who are fake bank accounts, pensions is being paid into that account. And this is a state subject actually, state and federal subject. Very sticky, very problematic, but this should be solved. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Avinash. And I can just say that I have been part of many, panel discussions, but after a long time, I have been part of one panel with some amazing ideas, concepts, things which have already been done and things which can still be done. when we talk about the bank of the future, one thing which is clearly emerging is that intelligence, be artificial or otherwise, is playing a great role, and there are consistently interventions being made to run and reinvent the way we have been doing banking. So thank you, Arif. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Vinash, for a wonderful discussion. And thank you, all of you, for being physically present after a long time, which was an absolutely amazing experience. Thank you, Elets.